Alright everybody, we're back for video number 4 in our TinkerCad introductory series. We're going to pick up this video where we left off with our direct starters. If you remember, we just moved these 4 blocks from the center out to the corners. We got our fireworks, so we're done with this one. We'll continue on. Let it load. Alright, here we go. In this lesson, we're going to rotate our shapes. A lot of times you can use a basic shape and rotate it to do what you need it to do with your design. With this, they give us 3 shapes. We're going to rotate them in 3 different directions, 3 different planes. So we'll click Next. And they tell us here that we can left click on a shape, and that'll bring up some controls. So let's zoom in on this guy over here. We'll start with the left and work to the right. And when we're rotating objects, we're looking for these curved arrows. Depending what your viewpoint is on an object, you'll see 2 or 3 of the arrows at one time. This one we're looking straight on, so we'll see these 2 arrows. This arrow back here is going to be the one we want to use for this shape. So we'll click on it and pull it around. So we went negative 45 degrees, that lined us up. We could have also gone 45 degrees to line up. We could have also flipped around here. There we go, 135. And you'll notice as I'm dragging, I'm staying along this track. If I click out here further and try to drag, it'll let me do that. There we go. There we go, now I'm dragging it. If I click out here further, it'll let me go by very small degree amounts, almost 1 degree at a time. When I use this inner track, it lets me snap to different degrees. So if it's something where you need to rotate 90 degrees, you can use that inner track. And as always, you can really just click on the box, put in your numerical input, hit enter, and it'll take it over to 90 degrees. So remember, on this one we were using the back arrow here. On this middle one, we're going to use this arrow down here because we want to rotate it on this work plane here. And it's going to be the same way. We'll click that arrow, drag it around 45 degrees. Now this one, they want us to kind of rotate it towards us, tumble it towards us. But all I've got is this option back here for this arrow, and that's not going to do what I want. And I've got this option down here for this arrow, but that also doesn't do what I want. So what I need to do to get to the correct arrow, the correct control, is to rotate around till I find the other third arrow. Once I'm there, then I can rotate that one and bring it towards us. And we'll bring ourselves back to our front top view. And we've got all of our boxes lined up with our orange hint boxes. So let's see how we did here. Oh, looks like we got our fireworks. Alright, we'll go on to the next lesson. This one we're going to size it up. So all these 3D shapes they give us over here are great for building different things. We can combine them, we can do different things with them, but a lot of times they aren't going to be the right size we need. If we need something, if we're making a name tag, for example, we're going to want a flat box instead of a cube. So this lesson is going to go over the different ways to move and stretch boxes around the workspace. Click our next. So let's go ahead and start on this left one. They're wanting us to stretch it out left to right. The way we do this is we click on use these white boxes in the corner. 4 boxes in the corners are going to let us move left and right and stretch towards us and away from us. The box on top is going to let us change the height of our object. We aren't going to mess with that one right now. So we're going to click on this bottom right box. We'll stretch it out like that. And we'll click over here and we'll stretch it to the left a little. Now you'll notice if my mouse slips, I can take it and make it thinner. But I don't want to do that. I just want to stretch it left to right. Right there. Okay? Now this one we're going to want to pull towards us and push away from us. I'm still having problems with not keeping the consistent width. So another way I can pull and push is using these black handles. They talk about this in step 2. Black handles are going to let me just push and pull one edge alone. There we go. That one got it. And this one will come in. Now we got to pull all 4 edges on this one. So I could use this white box and pull this corner out here. And I could use the white box on the back right corner, would be that one there, to pull back into this edge. Or I could use the black handle, black box, pull that way, and pull that way to get everything lined up. So again, you'll use this white box if you want to move things in and out, thicker and thinner, left and right. If you just want to pull on one edge at a time, we'll use this black box. And they don't talk about it in this direct starter, but anytime we got to make an object shorter or taller, we'll use this box up here, the white box up here, and it can be dragged up and down just like the other ones, and just like the other ones we can put in our own numeric input. So I can make it taller, or I can bring it back to the 20 millimeter height. Alright, let's see how I did. There's the fireworks I'm looking for. Alright, on our next project here we're going to start grouping things. Unlike more advanced CAD programs, TinkerCad works off of basic shapes. If you want to make a complex shape, you have to add or subtract to these basic shapes, and we do that by using grouping. And they talk here about using the basic shapes and combining them to create new ones. So on this one, we're going to start on the left object over here. We'll zoom in on it. We're going to select that box. Anytime you select something in TinkerCad, it's going to have a kind of a blue halo outline to it. Then we're going to hold down the Shift button and click on the cylinder. Now we've selected the box and the cylinder that's on top of it. We want to turn those into one object. Right now they're 2 objects. If I were to click on this box and drag it, it pulls it away from the cylinder. I want to make those 2 objects become one object, so I'll click on it. I'll left click. I'll come up here and I'll use that group button. You can also use the Control G on your keyboard. It'll do the same thing, but we'll group it. And when you group it, it combines those 2 shapes. Now when I move it, it moves as one shape. Now that's great if you're adding two shapes together, but what if you want to take something away from the shape? So over here, we'll go on to the next step. We're going to group to make a whole. A lot of times you can make a shape in TinkerCad by taking part of a basic shape away from it. So again, we'll click on the box. We'll click on the cylinder that shows as being a whole. And when we group those together, you can see we've got a hole through our cube. So that is grouping shapes. And there's my fireworks. Alright, and our last of our starter lessons to finish up this video is going to be aligning objects. A lot of times when you're designing a 3D object, you want to have several basic shapes over here, several grouped shapes together, and you want them all to line up a certain way. You want them all to be centered on each other. You want them all to be next to each other in a line. So that's what we're going to do with this lesson. We'll go ahead and get started here next. And it tells us how to get set up here. Now it's telling us we can click on this one and this one, holding shift, click on that one, and we'll select all three. Another easier way to select when you guys select a lot of objects at once is to click your left mouse button and drag a box around all three. That selects all three objects. Let's come up here. We'll click on the Align button. When we click on the Align button, it gives us this kind of framework with the black dots on it. I'm going to rotate just a little bit here so you guys can see a little bit better. Each of these black dots is going to align the selected objects into a different plane. So I could align them this way, and it'll pull them all in line with that button. I can align them all this way, and it'll move them all in line with that axis. They'll be one above each other. I could even pull them all down here with this button, and it looks like one shape, but I've actually got 1, 2, 3 shapes. So I'm going to go back, undo a bunch of that I just did. Get us back to that spot. There we go. Let's go ahead and select all those shapes again. Click our line button. Now it's wanting us to line everything up with this front left square. So that's telling us it wants us all in line with this front edge, and it wants us to have all three of these boxes down on this work plane. Some of these are floating up in the air pretty high up there right now. So the first thing we want to do is click on this line because we want to align to that line. That gets us all along that front line. And then we'll click this lower button over here, and that's going to pull all three of those shapes down to the work plane. Let's see how we did. Oh, looks like we got them all where they're supposed to be, and you can even rotate back and it looks just like that picture there. So that's what we need to do. We're going to go a little bit off the script here. I'm going to get some of these objects out of the way and just show you a couple other things that this is useful for. In our previous example, they were showing us how to line up, or how to group rather, the cylinder and the box. So I'm going to do that. Now getting this cylinder in here and getting it centered can be a little bit of a troublesome experience. So instead of messing around and trying to measure it off and get it exactly where I want it, this is where the Align tool really shines, is because I can just select those two objects, use the Align tool, align them along that line, line them along that line, and now my cylinder is going to be centered in my box. So a lot of times when we're using the align tool is to do stuff like that. All right, guys, that gets us through the direct starter projects. I'm going to click done there. We'll go back. And in the next video, we're going to start actually creating objects instead of just doing practice exercises. So we'll catch you guys in that video.